Flunger moves on in, and he scores!
He's gonna learn today.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Pod Street Bullies. My name is Derek.
And I'm John. What's going on, everybody?
We are bringing you something a little bit out of the norm for us, but nonetheless something we discussed last week that we're going to have a lot of fun with here.
We're going to talk about the Bundesliga, or whatever it's called, right?
Bundesliga?
Oh, is that what it is?
Are you talking
the Germans?
Yeah. I mean, no, that's like, isn't Bundesliga soccer?
Yeah, didn't that come back this weekend?
I'm assuming. I don't follow soccer. I'm sorry, I'm not up
No,
to
neither
date
do
on
I.
that.
I just saw on Twitter people like, we got to pick a Bundesliga. What's it called? Bundesliga?
Bundesliga, I think.
Bundesliga.
Again, not very familiar.
Bundesliga team.
Maybe we will, man, because I'll tell you what, I am itching for some organized sports right now.
Yeah, is the whole NASCAR and golf thing working for you?
When I was little, I followed NASCAR just because of my parents. I was a big Dale Earnhardt fan. Never really got into golf. It's way too slow. Way too slow for me.
No. Yeah, in college, I had a couple buddies that were big into golf, and they'd put it on, and I'd take a nap. Like, that's when I knew it was time to take a nap. And every year, NASCAR comes on, and I'm like, you know what, I'm going to try this, because it seems like the perfect thing to watch, because you could just sit there, drink a lot, and mindlessly watch cars go in circles. I get like 15 minutes into a race every time I try.
Oh, dude, it's so tough to watch because it's like you said, the same thing over and over again. Left turn, unless they're on one of those road tracks, and then that's fun.
You could not finish in first place and still win the race. Like, there's some weird scoring thing. Like, that just doesn't make sense to me.
Really?
I think there are like 3 stages of a race. So it's like I don't know how many laps is in a race, like 200, something like that, 500.
Depends
whatever.
on the mileage of the track. I guess it's 500 miles, I think.
So they split it into stages, and like if you win, it's like the amount of points you get per stage is how you win the race. It's not where you finish at the end, which just seems stupid to me.
I don't like that either. I think from what it sounds like to me, at least, this just reeks of them trying to appeal to younger crowds, people that get more into it, so that people will become more invested into it, so they can be like, oh man, this guy just won, but how did he do in the first stage of the race? You know what I mean?
Well, I guess so.
Yeah.
I don't like to get too old, but...
Nah, I'm not a fan of that type of format. I'd rather watch hockey.
Yeah, maybe we should stop Pod Street NASCARing and get into what we were going to talk about, even though this is barely hockey, too.
Pod Street stock cars. But what we are going to get into this week is every major sport in North America right now, discounting soccer again because, well...
The four major
sports, yes. We're going to talk basketball, we're going to talk baseball, we're going to talk football, and we're going to talk hockey, and we're going to compare the championship trophies based on 4 different criteria, and this is how it's going to work. Would you like to explain this, or do you want me to keep going here?
Nope, I want you to explain it.
Okay, so what we did here and what we agreed upon is that there are 4 criteria in which we are going to grade each sports trophy. So the first criteria is looks. Second is difficulty of achieving that trophy. Second is the name of the trophy. And last but not least, the history of the trophy. We rank them 1 to 4 in each category. And per category, first place is worth 4 points. Second place is worth 3. Third place worth 2. Fourth place worth 1. We add it up, and whoever has the most points at the end of this episode is the official Pod Street Trophy champion. We can call it that.
Yeah, it's exciting. I think it's just an opportunity to talk smack about a bunch of trophies.
Oh, yeah, and it's a definite opportunity for us to place one league above the other, which I'm sure you all know.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Everybody, please be forewarned. There's a lot of hockey bias in what I'm going to say throughout this thing, so bear with me. I tried to be as unbiased as possible, but I couldn't help it.
It's tough to be biased. It's tough not to be biased with hockey because this is what we cover. This is what we talk about every week. This is what we write about for our outlets. So, hey, regardless, we're going to get down to it and start out with looks. So the looks of each trophy. Which trophy to you, John, has the best look?
Oh, well, it's got to be the Stanley Cup for me, man.
Okay.
It's just this giant chalice. It's the only trophy you can drink out of. I guess you can't do it anymore, but there's just something so grandiose about this massive cup, and it's called the Stanley Cup, so it's nice that it actually looks like a cup. To me, none of them. There's one that comes kind of close, but it's just got everything you want in a trophy. It's big, it's girthy, you can drink out of it, those kind of things.
Yeah. That one trophy you're talking about that comes close is the one that I ranked at the top. It was very hard for me to not rank the Stanley Cup number one. Obviously, again, because we talk about and cover hockey, but I feel like the intricacies to this trophy kind of set it above the rest. And you look at it, it's the MLB trophy, the Commissioner's Trophy. I feel like we should have probably named these trophies and what they are, but we'll get to the name here in a little bit. It just the flags that represent each team, and then the pennants that represent the teams that faced off in the World Series the year before on the bottom. It's very detailed. Like you said, the Stanley Cup is detailed as well. They both have that going for them. I think it's just the little nooks and crannies of the MLB trophy kind of set it apart from the Stanley Cup, if anything.
Can I add one more thing for the Stanley Cup?
Okay.
The names. I think the names on the cup, it's just like, it's a Hall of Fame right there. I think that's really cool. But, to be fair, man, I didn't even realize that all those flags, that's what they meant on the baseball trophy.
Absolutely, yeah. They represent each team. I believe it's each team. If I'm mistaken, please correct me. Again, hockey podcast. But anyways, number 2, your second-ranked trophy with in accordance to how they look.
Yeah, so that for me is the baseball one. Also because I think it's very elaborate. It's pretty. Like, I like a trophy when you look at it and it's like, when you're looking at it, it feels like you won something amazing. And even though it's going to receive 3 points for me as the second place, it was a close one. I do think it's a beautiful trophy.
Absolutely, and I'm the exact opposite. I picked the Stanley Cup for the same exact reasons John just said. I feel like functionality should play a part in that as well, because, like you said, you can drink from it when there isn't a global pandemic happening. But just how cool it is, and how you said the names. You have names from decades ago that won the Stanley Cup. I mean, and it's authentic. It's not like a mass-produced. You have misspellings of names on there too, as well. I don't know if you knew that or not. I looked that up. There's a couple misspellings, not many, but it's really interesting to see that and how just real that trophy is.
For sure.
Yeah. Number 3, I have a feeling we agreed upon this without actually discussing it. So I'm going to let you go ahead.
So to me, both these trophies that are left could visually have a little work done to them, but for me, third place goes to the NFL Super Bowl trophy. I mean, we're talking the freaking Super Bowl, right? It's like an unofficial national holiday in the United States, and you've got a staff with a football on it. When these people hold it up, it looks like it's too small for their hands. I don't know. It doesn't, when we're talking about how big of an event the Super Bowl is, and you get all these great halftime shows, and Aretha Franklin comes out and sings America the Beautiful, and everybody's there, and then you got that thing. I don't know, man. It's like, it's not awful. It's not ugly. It's not as ugly as the one that I'm going to rip to shreds in a little bit. But it's like whatever.
Now, my original number 3 has just changed.
Oh, no.
It has. And the main reason is because I kind of want to play devil's advocate.
Okay.
My number 3 ranked trophy is the NBA.
Okay.
Now, I picked the NBA just because of the description I've read, and it's something I didn't really know until I looked at it. What it is when you describe it, it's the basketball up top, but apparently what's holding it up is symbolizing the rim and the basketball going into the rim. So at least, again, there's some functionality to it where it kind of is exemplary of basketball itself. You know, the ball going into the hoop. It's better than the NFL trophy. The NFL trophy is
bad modern art to me.
It looks like. I should have prefaced this by saying neither trophy is very visually appealing, in my opinion. But I think just the added functionality. Again, I'm going to use that word way too much right now. Just it looks like the sport itself. You know.
You know what it looks like to me, man? Like, you ever go to a party and there's like those artsy fartsy people there, and one's a sculptor and he's like showing you his sculptures or his paintings, and you're like, wait a minute, that's art?
Like the person that duct taped the banana to the wall?
Yeah,
and that
like,
guy ate the banana?
The thing that comes to mind is I have a younger cousin who's big into art. And she came to visit me, and I took her into the city, and she really wanted to go to the Museum of Modern Art. Again, we're talking New York City. So we go to this museum, and I'm not much of an art guy, but if I'm going to go see art stuff, I like older, like, paintings and things like that. I went to France a long time ago, and we went to the Louvre, and I got to see all these cool paintings, and I enjoyed that. Modern art, on the other hand, I don't get. And there was this one thing, it was just a urinal. It was a urinal on a wall, and it was art.
Jesus.
Like, see, that's what the NBA trophy is to me. I'm just like, I'm not really – now that you've provided a little bit more of a description, but I was just – I didn't really catch that meaning when I was looking at it. It just looked stupid.
You got to do your homework, John Gove.
Yeah, but it's not fun when I do my homework because then I sound like you.
Yeah, well, one of us has to be the calculated one. The other one gets the knee-jerk reaction. So I've pigeonholed myself again.
Well.
But yeah, that's my pick for number 3.
So what's wrong with the football one for you? What made you make that last?
It's boring. It's flat out boring. It's literally a football on top of just like a slab of whatever type of material they use. You know, it's just there's nothing like it could be like a football going through a goalpost or a football going into like receiver hands, and that'd be kind of neat. Or an arm with the football in it. Even I feel like that would put it above the NBA. But it's literally just a slab of what do you call it? Silver or whatever.
Dude, I just had an idea.
Okay.
If you were ready? If you were to remake the NFL's Super Bowl trophy, what would it be?
I just said it.
You just gave me like 45 options. Pick one.
Well, you pick one. Any one would be better than what it is right now.
A golden helmet.
A golden helmet
with the Super Bowl logo on it.
Okay, but the Super Bowl logo changes every year.
I know.
Okay. Now, it'd be an interesting...
it'd be better than the thing that it is.
You're right, yeah. And I mean, you look at it too. Think about this. I mean, look at the trophy they hoist up when you did win the BCS championship. That like crystal football.
Yeah.
Like that was, I feel like, almost too elaborate. And I was just waiting for somebody to break that.
Exactly. That's like moving things out of your dead grandmother's house. You're just like, oh my God, what do I do with this thing?
Hey, let's just give it to the winner of the BCS. Like, great idea, you know?
Right. All right. We spent way too much time on the looks. So we want to recap here. For me, we got Stanley Cup as 4 points. Then you got the Commissioner Trophy. Your MLB's got 3.
Yep.
Football's got 2. NBA's got 1.
Yep. And then I have MLB at 1, NHL at 2, NBA at 3, and NFL at 4.
But you're going to confuse the listeners because we went the points.
4 points for baseball, 3 points for hockey, 2 points for football, 1 point for basketball.
Right. I mean, if anybody is listening to this and not going, they just wanted to get on a podcast episode, because really there's nothing relevant here.
No, really. And this is just us wanting to get away from our wives for a little bit. But
right. And kids. And kids. My kid turned 3 on Thursday, and ever since she turned 3, she's turned into a real McAsshole.
Oh, boy. Yeah, I can't say the same.
Brutal.
Ours has been like Can't wait for that. Oh boy. Anyways, we move on to the next category where we rank it by difficulty. Unanimous number 1. What is it, John Gove?
Wait, hold on. I thought it was name. We're doing difficulty?
Which one do you want to do first?
Can we do name so we can start calling them by their names?
Let's do name. Let's go name. I feel like we have a unanimous one here as well, so let's start off with that.
So yeah, top one for me, Stanley Cup.
For sure. Absolutely. I mean, when you think about it and you look at the other names,
right,
it just doesn't compare.
I mean, and listen, like Stanley Cup it's an all right name. Like it's cool. But I think it's more on the top because the rest of these names kind of suck.
Yeah, and like when you look at the history of the name, which we'll get to here in a little bit, like it's pretty cool, and it's interesting. You know, it's a story behind it where there's stories behind the other ones, except for the one because it's about as generic as you can get. But it's a much better story than the other two. Number 2, you have under name
the Vince Lombardi Trophy.
Yes, sir.
I just think, you know, I follow football more than basketball, which is the other trophy that has like someone's name on it. And, you know, to me, Vince Lombardi is a big part of football's history. So it just kind of made sense if you're going to give a name, you like put someone's name on the trophy. So, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, they named it after Lombardi Super Bowl V in 1970. After he had passed away from cancer, the guy won the first 2 Super Bowls ever. So, I mean, what better way to kind of honor that man than to give him that trophy? And the prestige surrounding that man's name, obviously, is heightened by giving the trophy his name. So, yes, it's definite number 2 for me. Number 3.
Yeah, so the Larry O'Brien Trophy, the NBA's trophy, I'm not sure who Larry O'Brien is.
Do I have a story for you?
I think you might have already told me this, though, too, and I still don't remember, so it must not have been that appealing.
I don't think I did, but I'm going to go through it anyway after you're done your point here.
So it's strictly because of how bad the name for the World Series trophy is. That's why Larry O'Brien gets number 2 for me.
Like, if that's where you set the bar, that's a piss-poor bar to set. So
tell me about Larry.
Larry O'Brien, from 1965 to 1968, was the U.S. Postmaster General under Lyndon B. Johnson, the president at the time. Do you know that?
No.
So this guy went from U.S. Postmaster General to the NBA Commissioner in 1975 to 1984. Like, talk about 2 ridiculously contrasting careers. You're in charge of mail, and then you're in charge of the biggest basketball league in the world.
Yeah, that is quite bizarre. And it wasn't even like during the Karl Malone years.
Yeah, you know, the years where, let's be honest, I feel like basketball was way better in the 90s and early 2000s.
I was just the mailman.
Good one. Okay, caught that now.
You see?
A little slow there. My apologies. But they named it after O'Brien. He passed away in September 1990, and had cancer. But they named it before he passed away. So they named it actually right after his tenure as commissioner was over. One thing I did find interesting, and just real quick, he had a lot of success as the GM for basketball with TV contracts with CBS, bigger attendance. He expanded All-Star Weekend. But a lot of it was credited to David Stern, who arguably is the best GM for the NBA that they've ever had.
Commissioner, he's not a GM.
Commissioner, sorry. My apologies. Jesus, we get so used to talking about GMs on the show here. Commissioner. Well, I hate talking about the NHL's commissioner because he sucks. But, David Stern, arguably the most genius mind to ever be commissioner of the NBA. We know that with Adam Silver because he kind of sucks too. But
does he? I don't really know, man.
I don't either. It's from the Sixers chat that I'm in, and everybody fills me in, and I'm like, so now I won't sound like a complete doofus when I talk basketball.
Well, and maybe if I was a bigger basketball fan than I was a football fan, I would have ranked Larry O'Brien Trophy over Vince Lombardi.
I thought
But
about
that's
it.
just not how it works for me.
No, I was of the same breath. I thought about it. I'm like, you know what? There's a cool story behind that, but this is based on name and not history. So I'm sticking to my guns. Now, the worst named trophy in the 4 major North American sports. What is it, John?
The Commissioner's Trophy.
It's not the
Baseball.
GM's. It's not the GM's trophy.
The freaking Commissioner's Trophy. Like, they could have taken a bunch of names, put them into a baseball hat, and picked out just something else, and it would have been better.
They could have named it like the Mark McGuire Trophy, and I'd have been happier about it.
They could have called it the RuPaul's Trophy for all I care. It's better than the freaking Commissioner's Trophy.
It's so generic. It is so generic.
It just means that they're just like, what do you name it? I don't care. Just call it the freaking Commissioner's Trophy.
Genius idea, sir. Like someone in that meeting was a complete ass kisser.
Oh, yeah. That thing. Yeah. I don't even need to say anymore. If anybody thinks that's a good name, you suck.
No, and like John and I have touched on, I am the big research guy. I didn't even bother to research why they named it that, and I don't even know if there is a reason as to why they named it that. I don't care. It sucks.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so we'll recap for me.
Recap.
Because I wrote all these things down. So Stanley Cup obviously is in the lead. It's going to win, guys. I hate to be a spoiler alert on that, but
We don't even have
got
to
8
record the
points.
rest of this episode then.
It's got 8 points. The Vince Lombardi Trophy's got 5 points. The Larry O'Brien Trophy's got 3 points, and the lovely Commissioner's Trophy has 4 points.
Yes. And for me, I'm not going to do totals because I've been trying to keep track of yours. But now that I know you're keeping track, I'm going to keep track of mine as well. We've got the NHL with the best name. So they've got 4 points there. That gives them 7 total. The NFL, that gives them 5 total. The NBA at number 3, that gives them... I'm sorry, the NFL has 4 total. The NBA has 4 total. The MLB... with the worst name, has 5 total. Quick math for me there.
On this episode of Derek Does Math.
It's going to be a short one, folks. Very, very short episode. So we've got...
This next category, I'm just moving us along. This next category was the hardest for me.
Okay. Are we doing history then?
Oh, no, we're doing difficulty.
How was this one the hardest?
Because I was trying to think of the things that make them similar, the things that make them different, and understanding that none of these trophies are easy to win. So
Okay.
I had a hard time with this. And I'll explain to you why as we move along here.
Okay. I'm anxiously awaiting.
So I'm just going to start, Derek, if that's cool.
Yeah,
So,
go for it, brother.
I did pick the Stanley Cup as the hardest trophy because it has an 82 game season, which I understand is not the longest season, but it has a very long playoff. You got 16 teams that make the playoffs. It's 7-game series for all of them. It's a very physical game. These players get the crap kicked out of them every night from September to June if you win this thing. And if you make the playoffs, you decide you're not going to shave, which could also be quite grueling depending on what kind of facial hair you grow.
Not for me.
But I thought that when it came down to it, it checked all the boxes. Like, it's a grueling long season, and it's a grueling playoff. Your blood, sweat, and tears really go into this. So I ended up giving them the most difficult to win. But the others I had a hard time kind of juggling with.
The others were tough, and I bust your balls about it, but you're right. It's difficult to rank the other 3, but the NHL stands alone. Just the sheer physicality of the game paired with the frequency in which these guys are playing. Then you get to the Stanley Cup Finals, and you're playing it every other night essentially, and it literally goes from regular season hockey and playoff hockey to completely different animals.
Yeah, definitely.
Even if you're brand new to hockey and the first game you watch is the last game of the season, second game you watch is the first game of the playoffs, you notice that it is a totally different game.
Yep.
So, obviously the NHL is the choice here for the most difficult trophy to win amongst all four of these leagues. Now, the second most difficult trophy to achieve for you, John, would be
the Commissioner's Trophy.
Okay.
So I really had to give one to baseball here because it's 162 game season. And what is it? 6 teams or is it 5 teams per league make the playoffs?
I think so.
I think it's 5, right? And then that's just like a wild card. And
yep.
I mean, that's not a lot of teams. So that's a long ass season with a very small chance of making the playoffs.
Oh yeah. I mean, I shouldn't say very little room for error, but when you play 162 games, it gives you a little room for error. But because there's not as many teams that make it, you're right.
Yeah, I personally don't love baseball because it's like a team can go 20-0 to start the season and still suck because there's just so many games. But like when we're talking about difficulty, you can't ignore the fact that these people are playing 162 game seasons, even though it's not a very physical sport. But yeah, so kind of length of season just let me put them at second.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you there. I think that, any sport, you play 162 games is going to be difficult. You could be playing 162 games of badminton, and it's still a ridiculous amount of workload there. You pair that with 7-game series in the playoffs, and, I mean, just the sheer difficulty of baseball. Like, I've never had to hit a 90 to 100 mile an hour fastball. I've hit a couple 80-mile-an-hour fastballs. It's not tough. Or it shouldn't say it's not tough. It is tough. It is not easy, is what I meant to say. Breaking balls, I'm like Pedro Serrano up there. I can't do it. Like, give me a tennis racket. I still probably couldn't do it. It's a very difficult sport. I have a lot of respect for baseball because I grew up playing it. I grew up being a huge fan, watching every game, damn near every game. My dad used to pull me out of school just to go to opening day for the Orioles. So that was like my life when I was a kid. But yeah, that's my kind of tribute to baseball, is giving them the third or the second most difficult trophy to achieve on the Pod Street Bullies trophy ratings here.
Look at you. Look at you. You're really doing them a favor. So for me, the third place trophy is Vince Lombardi, the NFL trophy, the Super Bowl, I guess we could call it.
Okay.
So, I have a hard time with this one because football, like hockey, is a very physical sport. It's a different kind of physical. It's not like a constant motion. It's like one just gladiator pile on and then another type deal. Mm-hmm. But I'm not going to ignore the fact that it's grueling on your body, and it's one game a week for that reason.
Yep.
And it's only 16 games for that reason. I think what I respect about the difficulty of winning the Super Bowl is you don't play a series. You have one game against an opponent in the playoffs, and it doesn't matter if you're the better team. If you have a bad game, you're going home.
You found that out 2 years ago. I guess Kansas City was the best team in the league, and they lost. Like, that happens every year, just about.
Yeah, so I mean, that's kind of what put them ahead of basketball for me. So yeah, I mean, I've really got nothing else to say about that, but that's why I chose football.
Yeah, arguably, it is the most physical sport, you could say. There's more hitting that happens, I think, in football and hockey, and not a slight on hockey by any means. But, again, 16 games, once a week, where the degree of difficulty for it obviously is up there, but you're talking 16 games to 82 games. Like that it's tough to compare that. And then 162 games for baseball. Like that, it's, again, I'm not trying to slight any of these leagues except for maybe the NBA, but it's still tough. I couldn't cut it in any of these leagues, to be honest. But the NFL definitely is above the NBA in difficulty, but most certainly below the NHL and the MLB, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I feel like I keep giving basketball the shaft, which is unfortunate because I actually grew up a really big basketball fan, and I still coach basketball. There's a part of the game that I really do enjoy. But the NBA, ever since it's been like forming these super teams and there's no parity whatsoever, it's just awful to watch for me. And there's a whistle called every time somebody drives to the basket, which also makes it just painful to watch. So although it makes it seem like I hate the sport of basketball, I want everybody to know I don't actually hate the sport of basketball. I just can't stand the NBA.
There's clearly a difference here because I'm of the same breath. I do not like the NBA. I do enjoy basketball, though. March Madness is one of my favorite times of the year.
Right. I mean, and I don't know what it is about why I put this forth besides for the fact that I just don't like the NBA that much. But I just was trying to think of like real reasons, like trying to be a professional here. And I think that what's happened for me is like you kind of know who is going to wind up in the finals or close to who's going to wind up in the finals.
Oh, every year.
Because you've just got these super teams where it's like, well, sweep in the first round, sweep in the second round, 5-game series in the third round. And yet I just feel like for that reason alone, I don't know.
You don't have your 8 seeds like the Kings making a run at the championship or the 7 seeds like the Flyers in 2010. Like that doesn't happen in basketball. It's almost always either the first, second, sometimes, and I mean sometimes, the 3rd seed that makes it to the NBA championships or the NBA finals, I should say.
Not always the case. It wasn't always the case. Back in like the 90s, that was not how it worked.
There's a lot of parity there.
Right. You had a lot of good teams. But now, forget it.
Absolutely.
I couldn't even tell you who's good in the NBA now. The Clippers and the Lakers, right? The Raptors, are they good too?
Raptors were good. They had Kawhi last year, and now their best player is like Pascal Siakam or something like that, I think his name is. He came around
I almost
last
said
year.
LeBurge.
Pascal LeBurge. I'm with you. Like I think, and maybe unpopular opinion for some of you basketball or NBA fans out there, I think that league is rigged to the teeth. Like it just kills me the fact that you have these guys. They're making top dollar out of most of these sports, and they're recruiting other players to come instead of the GM giving their pitches. I hate that. I don't like that. They're players. They should be doing what players do and going out on the court and playing. Let the GM handle the rest. It drives me nuts.
Right. I don't know. Like, I've never been very athletically skilled. I can remember 2 years ago I was at a engagement party and Reagan, my daughter, fumbled her bottle and I caught it before it hit the ground and my buddy goes, "Gove, I think that's the most athletic thing you've ever done." So like, but I just feel like there's very little competitiveness. Like they're not competitors in the NBA anymore. It's like we don't want to go up against the best players. We want to bring them to our team.
Yeah. So they don't have to play them.
Right. If you're an elite competitor, like you want to go up against LeBron James and you want to beat him.
Oh, yeah.
Or if you're LeBron James, you want to go and take a team like whatever was on the Cavaliers whenever they won or got close to winning. And being like, see, I don't need elite players. I'll beat the rest of you on every team. Whatever. We're talking way too much about how much we don't like basketball.
I could go on and on and on about my dislike for the NBA. Like, no joke. I feel like we could devote an entire episode to that. But we digress. We very much digress. NBA is number 4 for me. I feel like I've solidified that as well. To recap, where we're standing right now, John, the NHL has 12 points. The MLB has 7 points. The NFL has 7 points. And the NBA has 4 points. For me, the NHL has 11. The MLB has 8. The NFL has 6. And the NBA is sitting at 5. So this won't determine much except for the bottom and how this goes. But we're going to talk about the history of the trophies. So, number 1, again, unanimous, the Stanley Cup.
Yep. Well, and one thing, does this count as history? But I don't know if it does, and you don't even know what I'm talking about.
I will
it's
hear in a second.
Only trophy. It's the only trophy where it's the same trophy every year.
You could incorporate that into history, sure.
Yeah, so like it's the same cup that was passed on year from year from year. Mm-hmm. You know, Tiffany's isn't making it.
Yeah,
I only know that little information because Derek told me. I'll give you credit on that one, Derek.
You're welcome.
They carry it in a blue box before the Super Bowl. But anyway, that alone to me is enough to put you at the top as far as a trophy, you being the original, being passed on. Again, the names on it, I mean, all the history you need is on the freaking Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
And then the story, which I want you to tell because you're the guy who researches.
Yeah,
the story behind the cup is interesting too.
It's cool. Like the cup itself is named after Lord Stanley of Preston. He was the Governor General of Canada from June of 1888 to September of 1893. His kids were hockey players. They played hockey. So in that same breath, the Lord and the Lady, the Lord and his wife, Stanley of Preston and his wife, became avid fans of the game of hockey. So he decided to donate the cup, and at the time that cup was named the Dominion Hockey Challenge Cup, and he donated it to Canada. So Canada renamed it the Stanley Cup, and now it's awarded to the best team in the NHL. It wasn't always awarded to the best team in the NHL. There were other leagues that the cup was awarded to the winner of. We talked about this with Mike Comito a few weeks back, where the best team from the NHL would go up against a team from another league to determine the winners of the Stanley Cup. But, you know, obviously now it resides in the NHL, but that's how it became the NHL's trophy, is that it was donated by the man that it's named after. Obviously It's named after that man because he donated it. But, like, that's the cool part of that. Obviously, it has to do with the name, but it also has to do with the history of it. So, NHL's number 1 for me as well.
Good.
And number 2. Here's where it becomes like a crapshoot for me.
Right. Yeah. So I went with the Vince Lombardi Trophy just because of the spectacle that the Super Bowls become. I mean, I think that if you talk about any major sports championship, the Super Bowl is where people are going to have the most memories just because more people watch it. Mm-hmm. It's an event. It's not a series. It's one game, and you know, and what it's turned into now, it's like WrestleMania but real sports. You know, so I just think that like all that kind of comes with what goes behind that trophy just made it number 2 for me.
And I've got a different number 2. I picked the MLB, the Commissioner's Trophy. Again, growing up, being a big baseball fan, I know the importance of baseball in this country. I know, you know, obviously it's America's pastime. And I've been a part of I've been a part of baseball playoff games where, you know, the Orioles, when they played the Yankees a couple years back, made that run to the ALCS, lost to, I think it was Kansas City. And like there's something special about that. Like the playoff games in any league, I feel like are great. Never been to a playoff NFL or NBA game, nor do I wish to go to an NBA playoff game because I just don't care. But anyways, the just the history of the trophy itself, knowing that the sport itself is America's pastime, that kind of ranked it above the other two leagues for me, but not quite where the NHL is at.
Yeah, and I think I had a hard time with this one too because I was trying to differentiate between the championship and the trophy because if you think of like what the World Series has been around since like 1887 or something.
Yeah.
So if we were thinking about like the World Series, it was different. But I was just thinking about the trophy, and I don't think it's been that trophy since 1887. So yeah, I don't. So baseball World Series Commissioner's Trophy was third for me.
That was third for you. Okay, that makes sense. I mean, it's a damn cool looking trophy. I'll give it that. Number 3 for me, I flipped with you there. I'm with the NFL on number 3. You can't deny the history of the NFL. Like you said, the Super Bowl is kind of turned into a spectacle as of late, with these flashy halftime shows and the Super Bowl ads that run, the commercials. But you can't deny the fact that the NFL is one of the most historical leagues in all of sports at this point. The history that
right.
there is in this league, it's incredible. And it's one of the most entertaining to watch. I'll give it that too. But yeah, strictly speaking to the trophy and the history behind it, there's not much. I looked at a couple little things where like Gronk put a dent in it like a year or two ago when he spiked it or threw it to Edelman and tried to catch it or something and it dropped. But the one, the PR lady, I guess, for the Patriots was like, oh, we'll get it fixed or we'll get another one because it's all mass produced. Everybody gets a damn
right.
trophy in that league. So, as far as history goes, number 3 for me is the NFL.
Yeah. I'm cool with that. I mean, poor NBA, Larry O'Brien, last place for both of us. I don't even need to go into an explanation because my explanation is I chose every other one before it. I just found more reasons to put others before it.
Yeah. I mean, it just, the history of it, the difficulty of achieving it, I feel like that kind of plays a part into it because, again, and I'll stand by this, maybe not die on this hill, but I'm not that passionate about it. I really do think that to an extent that league is fixed, with the fact that these players are essentially running their teams and saying, go out and get that guy, go out and get this guy,
Right.
I'm not a fan of stuff like that. I think you're a player. You go and you play. You don't, get in your GM's ear and say, that guy's going to be a free agent next year. You need to sign him or else I'm not going to,
right.
I'm going to decline my option and go somewhere else. So
yeah, I mean, to be fair, though, if it wasn't for those individual players, though, like the NBA wouldn't be popular at all. Like that's kind of what makes the NBA appealing to certain people, especially kids.
Oh, yeah.
Like they're characters. They love collecting the jerseys and things like that. Except a basketball jersey is one of the most unpractical pieces of clothing you could possibly own.
I mean, you could argue that any jersey really is, but I mean,
yeah, when you get the Rocket tank top for like 2 months, and those things are hot to wear as tank tops.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like the looser fitting ones that were just completely mesh were fine. I had a couple of those back. I was a big Allen Iverson fan, so I had an Iverson, like a blue and a black. Wore that thing all the time. But like now, I feel like they're heavier now. I'm like, ugh, I can't wear that out even in the summer. Like I'd rather just wear a normal tank top.
Right.
Yeah.
So
overall,
let's
the final rankings.
Most best trophy in all the land, Stanley Cup. Shocker.
Of course. Yeah. Who would have known?
Then for me, second place was Vince Lombardi.
Yep. I had the MLB as the second most prestigious trophy.
Yeah, so they were only a point behind football for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and were,
as you can imagine, basketball was dead last.
Yeah, basketball got actually less points from you than it did for me. One, albeit, but still. We can at least agree on the fact that the NBA is a trash league. And the NHL is the greatest
You know what I learned from this, though?
What is that?
We really should probably just stick to talking about hockey.
Oh, absolutely. You know, as much as I try to keep up with this sport, that sport, yada, 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 I spend way too much time on hockey to ever talk about another sport.
Yeah. I mean, hey, we tried. We did something a little different.
We did. We kept it interesting, you know, in a time where really absolutely nothing is going on aside from hearsay and rumors, which really...
We even sprinkled in NASCAR and Bundesliga.
Bundesliga, yeah. I could listen to a half hour of you just butchering the name of that league. But before we get to that...
Bandersnatch League.
Jesus Christ. Before we get to that, let's put a bow on this one, please God. And John, tell everybody where they're going to be able to find us.
Okay. You know, I'm losing my mind, dude. I don't even know what's going on anymore. This quarantine has gotten the best of me.
You and me both, brother.
Well, I can't tell if I'm talking to you or talking to myself anymore. It's just like, is it the inner voices going on, or am I actually saying these things?
We're pretty similar, so it kind of is like talking to yourself, really.
You're right. You know, I actually caught up. There was a point, and then I'll tell the people where they could find us. I think it was Friday. I had a break between one of the classes I was teaching, so I went from the basement to the kitchen, and had a really fun break unloading the dishwasher. And I was in the kitchen unloading the dishwasher, and my wife comes in, and she was teaching in the dining room. She comes in and she goes to me, "Who are you talking to?" And I said, "Well, nobody." She's like, "Well, you're having a full-blown conversation with someone about the things that you need to do later." So I'm now talking to myself out loud. That's where we've gotten.
Jesus Christ.
So if anybody thinks that I sounded crazy in this episode, I want you to know it's because I am becoming crazy. All right.
The next time you call me,
care packages.
The next time you call me, I'm going to ask, like, did you mean to call me? It's going to be like that time on my birthday when I called you like 3 times trying to tell you the same story.
Before we start this conversation, may I ask who I'm actually speaking to?
Is this John or John?
All right.
Tell everybody where they can find us.
You can find us on Twitter at PodSTBullies. You can find the podcast on various podcast receptacles such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Spreaker. I'm trying to think of one more real one. iHeartRadio.
Yep.
Google Podcasts.
There it is.
Google Podcasts. YouTube.
Yes, we are on YouTube.
Right. And Pod Muncher.
That one as well. I think you've covered all the bases.
You could watch the video version of that one, but just make sure your kids or your parents are not around.
If they are, keep the volume down.
Well, but watching it.
Yeah. But like if you're on your phone and like they can't see what you're watching, just keep the volume down.
Well, it would just be us talking. It's the visual part.
I went for the joke
there. Out of here.
Yeah,
but it wasn't fun.
Let's hurry up and get out of here.
All right.
You can find John on Twitter at PodStreetGove. You can find me on Twitter at PodStreetBob. And I will leave you, as I always do, with the Let's Go Flyers.
Send help.
Yeah, John didn't sing this episode either. Goodbye.